Mitch, I know we're looking for a working title.
For years now, Darnelle.
4 seasons. We still haven't found it. But we cannot name the podcast The Business of Theater Show Must Close.
I think that is probably the opposite of what we want.
I've been seeing a lot of those signs as a promotion to buy your tickets. Show must close on this date, but I'm also referring to the end of the year. 2025 must close. It cannot close fast enough for many people.
And I know this is already off topic, but one of the amazing things about this particular year at Christmas time is Christmas weeks are usually, historically, the highest paid and the highest populated shows of the year. This is when shows make their bucks. And as you said, the most popular thing in ads these days is show must close. And it is now pre-Christmas. And I counted a dozen shows in New York closing on the 21st of December. They're not even going to try to make the big bucks. What does that tell us?
Yeah.
And the answer is it just tells us what is typical isn't typical anymore. I think that's the answer.
The end of the year is shining a light on a lot of closings and cancellations. We'll get into it, but this is The Business of Theater, a working title. I'm Darnelle Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss.
And let's get down to business. So as I alluded, I initially, this is our end of year podcast episode. There's a lot we can look back on, but ultimately we look forward because, as we look back, what we find is we've constantly been asking, but how? How do we get past this? How do we do that? And then we just keep moving forward and we keep identifying progress and we just have to keep looking forward. So even though as a community, we often return to the canon for valuable life lessons, we are looking forward to see, to have an idea of what may come or what sort of positivities showing up on the horizon. But at the end of the year, for many people, theater lovers as well, there's a lot of things that we all sort of do at the end of the year. It's kind of like, how do we put a pin in, this year as it's ending and look forward to a coming year? And so I wanted to start by just going back and forth about a couple of things that you tend to do in these last couple of weeks, I would say, of December and of the year.
Good. Go for it.
And so one of the things I brought up was binge watching classic TV. There are a lot of people who wait for a season to complete before they even start like a new TV show. But there are also a lot of people who, when they have free time, they will take a moment to look back on a classic series and they will binge watch it because they might have vacation time. They're trying not to go out and spend too much money. But either way, classic TV never dies because at the end of the year, there are no new episodes. And so it's often a look back at old TV shows or past episodes of the season.
We're talking about anywhere from I Love Lucy to Perry Mason.
Yeah.
Which is the show that I tend to watch late at night. Even newer shows like Death in Paradise, which is a British murder mystery series that I think has 14 seasons. That's what puts me to sleep, is watching something I'm already familiar with. I've already seen it. I just don't necessarily remember the ending.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can fast forward to the end. Sometimes you just let it close your mind for the day, take your stuff off. I'm sure you're talking about perhaps some newer streaming things.
Well, although I do remember shows like Perry Mason and Columbo, Murder, She Wrote, and all those, I do like mysteries. I do like those crime-solving shows, but there have been a lot of more current shows that have been paying homage to those shows. So like you mentioned Perry Mason, I was thinking Columbo, but I was also thinking of Poker Face, which is a newish series by Ryan Johnson. It starred Natasha Lyonne as the Columbo-esque character who can just sense when someone is lying, and then ultimately every episode is sort of like a villain of the week.
And how does this relate with theater?
Well, Natasha Lyonne's been on stage, right?
Yeah, yes.
And in the show has a lot of guest stars who have come from theater.
As does Elsbeth, by the way. Elsbeth is a 100% Broadway actor television show.
Wow. A lot of CBS.
I look at that show, even though, forgive me, I'm not in love with it, but I look at it to see friends.
Yeah.
My friends are on it. Every week someone says, I'm in the background, I'm playing a nun, or I'm in one of the ones who was part of the murder. It's very cool for New Yorkers.
I feel like they just look outside their studio and go, anybody on Broadway? And just pull them in. See, that was something you can kind of set your watch to for CBS. But now CBS, well, is it CBS, the Paramount company altogether? Under new ownership, so some things are going to change over there. We'll see. But yeah, that's something you can count on with CBS. But speaking of CBS,
yes,
there was an award show that happened recently. The Kennedy Center Honors. The Kennedy Center Honors happened at some point this week. Nobody watched. Well, like viewership was down 35%, which wasn't really high for the Kennedy Center Honors anyway, but to drop even 35%, ultimately because the Kennedy Center has become a very political hot button issue, which is unfortunate, but that was on top of what was already noted quite a few cancellations at the Kennedy Center because of politics. I think it's over 60. I think it's over 60 productions. Oh, I could be wrong. Sorry. Kennedy Center confirms more than 20 shows, cancellations, or postponements since the administration got more involved in the Kennedy Center.
We have a problem staying away from the man in the White House. We have a problem with what the purpose of all of our institutions, and I'm going to round that out to entertainment as an institution by itself. Forget the Kennedy Center initially.
Yeah.
One of the great things that happened in my lifetime is we went from 5 television stations to cable TV with 25 stations to then cable TV with hundreds of television stations to then streaming with now thousands of TV shows available. What that means is we no longer were catering to one point of view. And that means that if you particularly liked race cars, you could watch a television station on cable that only talked about race cars. Now, it may have had a small audience, but cable TV did not pay what network TV paid, so they could afford to give a very isolated group of people in our country some entertainment that spoke to them. What seems to be happening now is we're trying to say the diversity, and I know that's a trigger word for a lot of people, the diversity of entertainment as well as people is being attacked. And if we just left everything alone and let the creativity and the joy and the culture, the multi-cultures that exist in this country, not only exist, let everyone tell their own stories. It's endless. It's one of the most exciting things that happened to theater. We now all of a sudden have shows about things, speaking for myself, I had no idea about. I go to theater and go, wow, I didn't know that was real. Meaning an emotional content, not real like we're talking about aliens or something. It's joyous, it's educational, it's emotional, and it's exciting. And the more we let one group of opinionated people decide that is something, in my opinion, for us to be complaining about.
Yeah. And I think about over the years, like a lot of shows that I never watched, like whatever that Octomom show was
Never
about
saw
like
it.
the mother who had 8 children or something, and there was
Mhm.
like a lot of reality shows I don't watch. I was just thinking about like Duck Dynasty, for example. Like that was a very
Great,
popular
great
show
example. Great
for the
example.
people who watch it. Like I was not on a soapbox saying this show should be off the air. It wasn't of interest to me, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't exist.
Right.
There's the reason we have all these channels is because everybody has different interests. Sometimes you watch things like you may be somebody who watches primarily a certain channel, and then you're sort of open to everything that they do. You just like the aesthetic or something, but you also switch over to some other channel just for one or two things. And we also know that, like, for example, ABC, which is a Disney company, presents Abbott Elementary, for example. But Abbott Elementary is a Warner Brothers production, and it is just being aired on ABC. Like there's a relationship there that allows it to air on ABC, but it's still a Warner Brothers property.
Hmm.
This is how we get all this. This is how we get all this variety. I'll say because diversity is a buzzword. This is how we get all this variety because there are companies who create work that they don't have space for,
And
or
create
there's an urgency for it, and they put it somewhere else
and
where they can
creative
be seen.
artists, when allowed to let their imagination go wild, we all grow. We grow as a society. I do believe this may not be true, but I do believe the longest legacy for a society is its culture, right? If, we may hear about Alexander the Great, but other than his name and knowing that he conquered a few things, what does your society offer the world? And what we have been getting to is multiculturalism, and we've been good at it. So the idea of not just this is, to me, the argument for every nonprofit, every regional theater to argue this is why they should exist. They should be out there letting their local writers offer things, try things, experiment. I'll be honest with you, I just saw 2 pieces of theater. I'm going to call them pieces of theater in the last 2 weeks that I hated. Let me not even mince words. I hated every minute in the theater. And yet, there was something wonderful about their existence because although I think most of the audience hated it along with me, they were both New York Times critics' choices.
Hmm.
So something is going on here. And
I
it
was
just means it didn't speak to me and 3/4 of the other audience with me. I don't know what it was, but I
yeah.
literally, and not even figure, I literally hated it. Was torture being in that audience. It was also very long. They were over 3 hours. And 3 hours of torture is real torture.
Yeah. Well, because we were talking about entertainment, I wanted to just bring up one. So there is a series that has a chokehold on society right now. It's called Heated Rivalry. It is based on I guess, a YA novel by Rachel Reed. It's called The Game Changers. It's like 6 books. But Heated Rivalry is a story about 2 hockey players on opposing teams who fall in love and carry a long-term secret relationship because of the time frame that they're in, and the industry that they're in, feeling that they can't be true to themselves and so on. But the point I wanted to bring up is that that show is number 1 on HBO Max right now. HBO bought the rights to distribute it here, but it's a Canadian television show. And even though the show is so good in the eyes of everybody who's watching it, it will not rise to the levels that we call a success. In terms of, in this case, it is not eligible for an Emmy Award.
Really?
It's not eligible for an Emmy Award because it was fully produced by a Canadian company, Bell Media,
I didn't
Craig's
know
parent
that
company.
was a qualification, that it had to
Well, it
be
says,
produced in America.
yeah, it says the 220 The 2024-25 Emmy rules state that a foreign television production is ineligible unless it is the result of a co-production, both financially and creatively, between U.S. and foreign partners, which precedes the start of production. It was already completely in the can by Crave Media before it was before Max got the rights to distribute it. And so, even though it's here and it's a hit for HBO, it will not be eligible for an Emmy.
And they run all the way to the bank.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to get 3 seasons altogether.
That's, I don't know.
So popular.
The award thing has always been a contentious marketing tool to me.
Yeah. But I was just saying that to say that, like, even though this won't get those awards that we usually use as credibility, that doesn't mean this show isn't a hit. That doesn't mean it hasn't reached an audience and that it found an audience and it has changed people. Like, there are videos online. They're like, here's some straight guys watching this, not the season finale, but there was like a big moment in episode 5 of this 6-part series. And they're like crying, bawling their eyes out about the characters finding themselves in these moments in the public eye. And they're just pointing out how this isn't like a fluke. These guys who don't have a reason to be connected to this are compelled by this story.
And there is a part of America that would throw a fit watching it. So, and that's why variety, diversity, multiculturalism, having thousands of streaming channels, all of that's good.
Exactly.
And that's why having anybody tell us, I mean, yes, look, the president of CBS tells us what CBS has. The Schubert organization decides what shows go into their theaters. It's not like this is open to whatever the world wants. We do have gatekeepers. But the more gatekeepers you have, the more chance for variety. And going back to your point about the Kennedy Center, we just prefer not to have politicians involved in our gatekeeping on entertainment.
Yeah.
I think that's, for me, that's the bottom line. If any previous president or senator or anybody had put themselves in charge of deciding what entertainment is allowed at the Kennedy Center, I would have had just as much disagreement.
And I wonder I wonder what performers were like denied an opportunity to present at the Kennedy Center that makes this argument that they're carrying seem prevalent. It does seem like they want to curate something different at the Kennedy Center, but it's like, did they not have an opportunity to present at the Kennedy Center before?
I don't know. All I know is the only thing that I read was that there was a show that involved some drag queens, and that was canceled by the Kennedy Center committee that are
this new one.
By this new one, right. Other than that, I'm not aware of what was or wasn't affected by this.
But it doesn't make sense to argue that this has been a woke of things, blah, blah, blah. You're cutting out all these other people. You're not. You're actually cutting out people. It seems to me that all of this was trying to be as inclusive as possible to find audiences who could come into the Kennedy Center, which is what many nonprofit organizations are doing. They diversify the offerings that they have so that they can reach the community that they serve. They reach everybody. Well, as many people as they can.
Again, one of the arguments, bringing this back to regional theater, and when you have a place like La Jolla Playhouse, which is arguably one of the best development and producing organizations in this country, with plenty of new shows that become popular and shows that have interesting topics, we need more of them, not less. And what is going on now, because of the economy and because of political fears, because smaller theaters need money from the national government and from state governments in order to survive, because ticket sales won't do it. Yeah. So the argument being, now they're all worried. La Jolla doesn't worry about that, I think. So the question is, we need more of them, not less, so we can do more interesting things. And at least my assessment of what is being played across this country at other theaters, not counting the Broadway shows that are touring, is there's a significant reduction in how many new shows are being presented. The more new shows we have, the more variety we probably will get. First of all, most of these theaters have less money, so they're producing less to start with.
Yeah.
Then within that, they have to go, well, can we afford to take a risk? What if it's not a hit? Then the audience doesn't come. Then we don't even have those ticket sales. And then we can't argue next year to get a bigger grant because we didn't do something, quote unquote, popular. So now they're under pressure to do something popular, which means they need to know in advance what it is, which means you don't take risks. I think that is the exact opposite purpose of a nonprofit. Nonprofits are there to serve their community with both entertainment, but education and cultural creativity.
And I know we have companies. There are regional theaters who present on their stage with the thought process that this piece is on its way to Broadway. Everybody doesn't do that. But if you have a criticism about what's going on Broadway, like what's ending up on the stages, think about where this stuff comes from. It's like if you're not, if you're in a regional sector and you're not presenting anything new, you're just waiting for something to leave New York so you can bring it here. Like you're not feeding the pipeline, or maybe you're reverse feeding the pipeline. I don't know. It's like, should things ascend to Broadway or should they come from Broadway and trickle
And
down?
why not both? No, it's just like I said, we just need more of it and we're getting less. And I guess some people could argue that we're cleaning house, right? That there's a lot of dead wood out there. But all I see is people suffering without enough money to even do the basics. And how we do that, how we correct that is perhaps what we're going to look to 2026 for. I hate, I'm bringing it back to trying to be positive, but we need angels. We need people who say, may not know how to write a show, but I know I have enough money from my law firm, from my doctor's practice, from the money I made in the shoe business, and I'm going to get involved and I'm going to sit down and make sure my theater is funded. Of course, the question is who's running it. You ought to have some discretion, but we need more. We need the money to back up the ideas.
Do you think at all, like what you just said, do you think that speaks to the criticism of liberal talking points that are ultimately saying people need to come give us money to make these things happen?
It drives me crazy. And we've talked about this previously. I get 20 requests for money from New York City nonprofit theaters a day. A day. This is Christmas time. I know how these places are run. There are 2 out of the 20 that I wouldn't even spit on. The others are run by people that I think are megalomaniacs who do not have the wherewithal to treat their staff well, to come up with interesting ideas and take risks. They are in commercial theater. Nonprofits should not be in commercial theater except when they create new work. That is wonderful, right? That can be commercial, nothing wrong with that. But you can't make money off of the fact that you're going to your same subscription audience and you're getting a bunch of money from the federal government or the state government to do what you like.
Yeah.
Right? And so I know it sounds like I'm talking both sides of the issue, but I am, because I'm not asking for these angels with the big money to come forward and say, this is what you must do. I'm asking for them to be interested enough to look for who are the voices in your community that speak to the next wave of theater, of creation, of creative involvement. And you can be wrong, but these people need help. We need to overcome. We don't need another revival of, I'm not even going to mention the show because I don't want to hurt it. I like these shows. I'm angry, especially because, and we've talked about this too, a lot of the CEOs here in New York are making well over $500,000, some even over $1 million a year, and they're not producing anything that deserves that. These are nonprofits. I will not give them more money.
Yeah.
And, I don't want them to drown because they have created good theater now and then. But I don't want to give it to the salaries of people who are just walking through their job.
Yeah. And it's not enough to say that expenses have gone up. Okay.
No, it's not.
It's still very vague. But why have expenses gone up? Because sometimes you don't want to admit that the expenses went up because you had 4 months ago, you had a better deal on what you were trying to do and you dragged your feet. And so now that deal doesn't exist anymore. Prices have gone up or something has changed. Like there is an urgency to art. There's an urgency to art making as well.
Thank
It's
you.
like you can't just, if somebody's been trying to talk to you for the past 2 years about bringing this show to the stage or going through a workshop or something like that, and the more time you waste on not trying to find a way to do that, I don't know, I feel like if I started a theater company today, I'd want to be inundated with scripts. I'd want to be inundated with opportunities to say, how do I give this enough air so that it can continue developing? It's like, what do we need to do? I would talk to them and say, what do you need? How can I help you push this forward? Maybe I can't produce it, but maybe I can give you my stage for a night. Maybe I can give you my mailing list.
And those are the people that
Things
ought
like
to
that.
be funded. There are some, there aren't a lot, but maybe that's part of, we're fighting a gigantic establishment.
Yeah.
This is the way, in my lifetime, there were these are usually 10-year cycles. There was years in which every show going to Broadway first went to Philadelphia, then Boston, then New York. Sometimes they went to DC. Now, none of them do. It's starting to change again. Then there were others that only came from England. It had to be on the West End, and all these New York producers would fly over there and say, this is the show I want, and they'd try to outbid each other for who gets to produce it in the United States on Broadway. Then there was a period where it was a combination, which was interesting. Then there was a period where none of that was going on, and we actually had some original shows. There were a period of time where a whole bunch of shows came from La Jolla and Guthrie and Steppenwolf. And some of that has continued, but maybe not enough. I don't know. I will say this year, there's a great disappointment in the fact that there were some wonderful shows that couldn't make their money back. And it's not that they weren't the big shows that were wonderful, but the question still is, well, and now we move into another thing. Who are we aiming these shows after? And how are we supposed to try to trick people into going to these shows? Or are they, when I watch TV, I turn on a channel, I know I can just surf right through a whole bunch of stuff. Right? So what makes me decide I am going to one particular show and not the other? They all cost approximately the same, right? That, to me, is a big question. Excuse me. Do you have any opinion on that, Darnelle?
It is interesting because I was, as you were saying that, I'm thinking about what motivates me to go to Broadway. In most cases, my partner is excited about a piece, and so we plan to buy tickets and we go.
But what creates his interest in that?
Well, that's what I was. Yeah, that too. I think it's usually for my partner Matthew, I would call him an expert in theater, musical theater, Broadway, particularly. He has a passion for it. And you can mention a name of an artist and he can tell you the first show that they've been at. He can tell you these moments that stood out for him, but often he is pulling all of that together to say, it's Ragtime. I definitely want to see Ragtime, but also I want to see Josh Henry in Ragtime, or I want to, the actors that are in it, just sort of make it from a general interest to a greater interest. But he's able to pull all of those things together to say, this is something we should see. And But also it comes down to, and we sort of treat movies like this too. If we know ahead of time we've got some days off, we're just thinking about what storyline's interesting that we should go consume when it comes to a movie. But when it comes to theater, particularly Broadway, we're thinking about, do we have a weekend where we can see a matinee? Because I want to be able to come home with and minimize the expense of going to New York.
Right, but if there was nothing in New York that you wanted to see, it doesn't matter. Right?
True.
So my question is, I'm looking at it from, you sit down, you have a new show, you don't have a giant celebrity in it.
Mhm.
What could make, why did I go to 3 off-Broadway shows in December and 3 Broadway shows, and there are 41 Broadway theaters and there's another 40 off-Broadway theaters? What made me go to those 6 shows? I'm fat, and they're all different. They're very different. Some of them I took a complete chance on. One person on the street said, I saw that and I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah.
That says a lot to me if I know that person. And I
Definitely.
trust their case. Word of mouth. That's the number one thing, which, by the way, is in my years working on Broadway shows, that's why we invite theater folk to the early previews, often free of charge, because when they walk out, if they like it, they tell their friends who tell their friends who tell their friends. Non-theater folk don't reach as many people. So the idea, I mean, I was one of the luckiest people in the world. I was at the dress rehearsal of Hairspray when it first opened, and I had no idea what I was coming to see. I knew the movie, but I didn't, the original, but I didn't know what the musical was going to be like. We were going crazy in the audience because everyone in the audience was a Broadway dancer, singer, actor, or manager, or somebody. And we were going crazy in joy. We walked out of there, and I know it started selling out even without the advertising, because everyone was saying, you got to go see this. So that's number one. So how do we reach somebody who isn't connected to theater?
Well, just real quick. So that plays into the nostalgia of things and the fact that the canon keeps getting sort of rehashed. Because if you follow John Waters, you've already seen Hairspray. So you saw the movie. Saw the movie, not the musical. You saw the movie.
The movie.
And then you knew a musical was coming, and then the movie musical. So it's because, I know John Waters because cable TV played John Waters films in heavy rotation. And then when I got a Netflix account, I got more of the John Waters films because I was like, I watched that other one. Let's see this other, and things like that. And so you sort of build kind of an arsenal of knowledge about the artists in it, the creators, and so on. And if you have enough time, if there's enough out there so that you can learn more about, and I know everybody doesn't want this. Everybody doesn't want the backstory so they can feel excited to come into the theater. They just want to know is there's a good story, all the pieces are there, and the critics are saying it's great. But somebody has to go before the critics get there. When I think about that for theater, I've been asking this question in my new capacity as executive director of Theater Philadelphia, that, people make it to your preview without getting a Barrymore recommendation here in Philly, without getting a Barrymore recommendation, without the press telling you about the show. They've gone to your previews. So how do they get to your preview and you still have the mindset that they will not come until you get a quote from a review? They will not come until you get a Barrymore recommendation banner. It's like something is happening before the show even hits the stage that is working for some, that isn't working for everyone. We have to think about how to amplify that, because we always talk about we need to get more people into previews so that the rest of the run will be good. But if you are succeeding in getting people to the previews, why do you still need all those other things to get them to come to the run?
It's, in my book, The Business of Broadway, on Allworth Press. There's a section on advertising and marketing, and there are basically two concepts that producers and managers use. One, when they don't have a lot of money, because advertising costs a fortune, when they don't have a lot of money, they spend as little as they can leading up to opening night. And they just take their chances. And if the critics and now the bloggers love it, then the show does well. It takes a couple of weeks, but you build that into your budget. The other version was, I guess, what you call the Cats and the Garth Drabinsky's ragtime version. You spend your shirt, your underwear, your panties, and your socks in advance hyping the show. Just spending more money than anyone gave you. And you make people think it's a hit before it's even started previews. And hopefully that sells tickets, which it did for Cats, which it did for Ragtime, which it did for Kiss of the Spider Woman, which it did for a number of other shows. And then you become, and Evita, by the way, then you become critic proof, because Evita got bad reviews. And those of us who were around will notice that after opening night, there were no ads that had quotes on them. No critics' quotes were used even after opening night. But the show had been hyped so much in advance, everyone thought they should go see it. So that's a different way of marketing. I'm simplifying it, but those are the two basics. And different producers have different techniques. We're now in an era, because of social media, that I don't know what the correct philosophy is. Certainly if you have Denzel Washington and Jake Gyllenhaal in a show, it pretty much doesn't matter. You put their names out there and somebody buys a ticket. But if you don't, how do you get people in the seats? And often it's expensive.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So you either plan on not filling the theater with paid people. And by the way, I'm going to talk a little out of turn. There is a show called Starmites. It's a Broadway musical. It's been done in a lot of colleges and whatever. I think it was the Criterion Theater on Broadway, which doesn't exist anymore. As the manager of the show, in addition to all the work I was doing, I was told to paper. That means give out free tickets to fill the house for over 2 weeks. I had to fill a Broadway theater. They didn't want a single seat unfilled. And where do you find all these people without letting word get out, hey, you don't have to buy tickets, everything's free. And there's a technique to papering, which we won't talk about today. That's what we did. It was torture. And the show still opened and closed, even though there were a couple of Tony nominations.
It's like those buskers in Times Square, like, you want to see a comedy show?
Yeah, very much so, though those cost money too.
2-drink minimum.
So there are different techniques where people think the show is doing well, but no one's paying for it.
Yeah.
So you can't always say this is a hit just because you went to a full house. But again, part of that is if you have people leave the theater and go, that was phenomenal, the word gets out. It's a real hedge of a bet. 6-7. Here we go. That's a 6-7.
No, you didn't.
I did. I'm sorry.
So cringe, Mitch.
Maybe that
so cringe.
Should be our year-end subtitle. The
6-7?
business of the business.
I still don't fully understand it, but I hear that because the adults have jumped in on it that it's cringe now and it's not popular.
It's just whatever. Who cares?
Well, it's like, I know that there are all these dynamics because you're trying to get certain people, but the thing is, like, society is not telling us that we should love the arts. Not like Philadelphia is telling us to love the Eagles or to love the Phillies or to love the Flyers.
Okay. I think we have to be careful. I'm not disagreeing with you. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I think we have to be careful. To me, that saying it like that is similar to people who go around saying there's a war against Christmas. There's no war against Christmas. Jews celebrate Christmas. Muslims celebrate Christmas. I'm just saying
Yes.
that
I'm not
society.
saying that.
I know you're
I'm
not,
not saying
but I'm
that.
saying the wording is important.
I'm saying everyone is involved in the promotion of a city's sports teams. If you're here in Philadelphia and you go to the Independence Visitor Center, you will have the option of buying a shirt for the Eagles, for the Phillies, for the Flyers.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to any novelty shop in Philly, you will have that same opportunity. Those listening who are familiar with South Philly, South Fellini, for example, doesn't have anything about the arts and culture scene, but has a ton of stuff about the sports.
And you in your new position can change that. Except the difference with sports, there's a thing called a cheerleader. We don't have cheerleaders, nor do we have decade-long running shows. People, when Phantom runs for 35 years, you can have Phantom material in every souvenir shop in New York. But if your show runs a year, it ain't going to happen. And Broadway in of itself can only sell so much.
Yeah.
You don't cheer for Broadway because it depends which show you're going to. The thing about sports teams, they are singular, and theater is not. Theater, as we were talking, is diverse. It changes constantly. It's live. Sports, it's like saying, should we cheer one particular game that the Yankees have? No, you cheer the Yankees over a larger period of time, right? So that's where the difference is. So to say, I want to cheer Wicked, which now you can do because it's a global phenomenon, but Little Brick Bear Road or Bear Brick Road or whatever it was, which Laurie Metcalf just starred in and closed, is a wonderful, wonderful drama. And it closed early. There's no cheering for that. How do you do that? How do you say they're trying to get chess to be that. How do you get chess to be a social phenomenon rather than just a musical you're going to go see? It's tricky. It's really, really tricky. Then you get a small off-Broadway show like B-E-A-U, which was a big hit off-Broadway last year, moved still off-Broadway, but closer to Broadway, and they're struggling, or I think they're closing right after the new year. And yet people are raving about that. Word on the street is it's wonderful, right?
By the way, that show that Laurie Metcalf was in is Little Bear Ridge Road.
Well, thank you. And that's part of the problem. To me, titles, chess is very easy to remember. Wicked is easy to remember. Little Bear Ridge Road, I messed it up. And I saw it. I saw it.
We were talking about this the other day. I totally understand what you're saying about, a sports team is playing in its full season and there's still chatter about them year round.
Yeah.
Like we follow them in the off season. We follow them in the preseason. We follow them at the first day of training and all those things like that, where there's constant things that you know about them. And also all of those players do things in the communities that they live in, that they operate in, in the downtime of the season. And so a lot of that stands out for them. Like their season's over, they go back home and they do things at home. And we were talking about it the other day, how a show that's good only had a 2 or 3 week run. And at the end, you're sort of hoping, you're just wishing it could run longer, but you can't for many reasons. And I do understand that it's hard for a city to get behind a company producing a show that's only running for 3 weeks because it's hard. But then you say, okay, we'll get behind our entire season. And it's like, well, how do you support a season of variety, and you're not the only one.
Right? And there have been people who have tried it. There are theater companies that have said, we are only doing large musicals, right? Good Speed Opera in Connecticut. They do large musicals. Sometimes, every now and then, a new one. Rarely. And they have a very loyal subscription base. So they have it. but it's not going to make news. No one's going to run to their local bodega and say, I want to buy a t-shirt for Goodspeed Opera. Maybe when you're there, you might, if you're a theater person.
This is a thought where I think, not particularly Broadway, because the Broadway houses are where they are. But, when it comes to a regional area, it does help for there to be a little bit of scarcity in the arts organization. For instance, if you're the only theater in the city, you're going to have more of the community embrace the work, or they're going to find you because you're the only option.
If you can get the audience to even, and certainly this is my problem when they give out free tickets to students, which in principle, of course, I'm in favor of.
Yeah.
But if you send them to a show that isn't selling out, because that's what they do, then they see something that may not be as good as Hamilton. And will that make them want to come back? It's a question. Sometimes it's good enough. But
and sometimes the way if it's part of a class and they're getting credit for it, sometimes the teacher, instructor, professor is attaching so much extra to that experience that it feels like a chore and not really an experience.
And often the teacher isn't as knowledgeable about what the kids are seeing. So if you have a teacher who isn't a theater buff, you know this. When you see a theater buff and you sit down with them, the excitement in their eyes, right? It's just amazing.
Like when Matthew and I talk about Merrily.
Yeah, well, almost everybody.
I know. It's so good.
Yeah. It was one of those special events. There's no question.
And it's just interesting because, we know those who work in theater, we talk about all the time. It's like, okay, there was a group in here. And sometimes when it's young kids, the kids are they're doing what they do. They're excited to be out of school. They're excited to be in this space. They're excited to be there with each other. And you kind of want to embrace that energy. There's a way to get them to focus on the show, but the chaperones are more like military instructors, and they sort of suck the excitement out of this experience for them because they have their way of keeping them in order. There's a lot of 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. There's a lot of clap, clap, clap. They have to respond. It's things like that.
Darnelle, come on, kids, I'm going to be kind. Kids are unruly, and that is not what the theater experience asks for.
I know that, but I'm saying it's just like there were a lot of people who were in this mindset oh, we have to dress up. It's a whole to-do. We can't be on our phones. We can't have snacks in the theater. There was all these rules for coming to the theater.
Right, there are.
That were taking us out of the theater. And so that's what I'm saying about that. Especially when there's groups of young kids, those kids are being they're being sort of disciplined before they can enjoy this experience. And so they're walking in with that layer of structure that's not actually allowing them to give themselves to this experience.
And what do you suggest they do otherwise, since they have not yet been to the theater and they probably will start?
I think what would be good is that if the theater has a study guide for the show, the study guide should include theater etiquette. Right. Something that they can actually educate them on before they get there, so that when they get there, they can be in this experience.
Such things exist. Yeah. I was part of writing them in my younger years.
I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm saying before they get to the theater is a great time to educate them on theater etiquette and talk about how, even though we're going to be a large group in there, there's going to be other people who are not with us. And so that is the reason why we have to be mindful that everyone else is processing what we're about to experience in a different way.
But it's still rules. And I will speak for myself. In a middle school, I was a good kid, and those rules were a pain in the butt. And I mean, it doesn't mean I shouldn't have known better. It doesn't mean I don't understand them. It's tricky. It's really tricky. And there are people with ADHD, and there are people with other problems, and they all sit in that audience, and there's one teacher for 30. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, not easy. I once had to go up and discipline people in the balcony for eating fried chicken during the show. Yes, they knew the rules.
That's what I'm saying. I hope there's time before they get to the theater where they can ask questions like that.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we bring snacks into the theater?
Especially when they sell alcoholic drinks and they sell candy that makes a lot of noise and they let them take it to their seats. The theater owners have given up their own rights to discipline other people. We should have a whole discussion about that. There are candies that don't make noise.
And I'm not saying that everybody's wrong, and I'm not saying that the chaperone is a problem. I'm saying like it can't be like 5 minutes before we get to the theater.
You're absolutely right.
Here's a lesson. It has to be like, now that we know that we're going and we're a month or two out, we're going to learn about theater. We're going to learn about why there's an etiquette there that's different than a sporting event. Things like that. The nature of live theater, why it matters, and why these particulars are in place because of the work that's being done on stage. And if they don't have time to do that because it was really just that somebody got a deal on tickets, they got to get signatures from parents, and a lot of stuff has to happen so that they can even go. They got to secure transportation, get everybody back. They got to make sure everybody's getting credit and all that. But is there enough time really spent on why a theater is structured the way it is, and why, especially if this is the first time for people, like that's an opportunity to really educate them on things. Like, when you're in this space, it's not like a movie theater, although you could watch a movie in this theater because that movie is already in the can. It's a different kind of expectation and experience. And plus the sound is barreling at you in a movie theater. And so somebody chewing popcorn is not going to distract you in there, but like you're in this beautiful, quiet, poignant moment of the play, and somebody's phone rings, or just the jingling of somebody's jewelry is enough. And there is a lot of producers who have in their speeches that the slightest hair of anything is going to throw off this cast, which is something that does make it harder for the theater goer to enjoy themselves. They're just like, I can't even reach in my pocket. They told me I had to turn the phone off because vibration will disrupt the fragility of this production.
I just went to a Broadway show that required me to put my phone in a locked bag.
Yeah.
But for good reason. I didn't know why.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you told me that.
Yeah. But look, we have adults to teach as well as students. We have a lot
I'm not saying any of this is wrong.
I'm not arguing with you. Wait, let's get off the topic is what I'm saying. That's all. All right. So what do? We're trying to help our theater goers and our theaters that are suffering, but we need new blood with new ideas to go into 2026. We wanted one singular sensation. I have a new Broadway show called Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York. The official title is Two Strangers, but there's a subtitle. Maybe we make that part of the business of theater. Business of theater carry a cake across New York. It's a 2-character musical, and it fills the night with humor and with interest and intrigue. It comes from England. The male that came with the show from London is hysterically delightful. The woman who is American, she is wonderful, but he's the star. He's the one who just makes you laugh through the whole show. And it's a musical. And I have to say, considering it's a small show, this is something you want to cheer for, right? It's a good evening of theater, and that becomes my singular sensation.
Right.
Yours?
Let's see. My singular sensation for Philadelphians is One Man Nutcracker. It is as it sounds. Actor, deviser, artist Chris Davis does the Nutcracker as one person. Over the years, he has done this show. He's been at various levels of skill in terms of ballet. And a few years ago, he actually started taking official ballet lessons, and he's getting better and better every year. He's not doing this particularly, like, he's not trying to get into a company or anything, but, like, building on that, and the concept is that, this dancer was, like, world renowned, better than like, the best ballet dancers, but he had an accident and had to get a new foot, and so the foot was donated, but it was a left foot, and so now he has 2 left feet, and so he has to produce he has this opportunity to do Nutcracker as one man and has to overcome his fear of not being able to do this because of his 2 left feet.
See, and I listened to this, and to me, both of us.
It is great. And it's super popular. He moved to a larger theater this year, and the way he engages with the audience, it's just a fun experience. And if you're in Philadelphia, it's on stage through January 5th. I have a link in the show notes, but it's a really fun show, and I'm so glad that he does it because it's one of those. It's just like the Nutcracker is an annual thing. It's something you can set your watch to. You will have a great experience if you go. You can pick any ballet company, and they treat it with the same care and respect, you know. And so the fact that he's been consistently doing this One Man Nutcracker and just getting better and better every time, in terms of the production is fairly the same, but everything he's doing to be ready for it is just getting better and better. And everyone walks out. He does testimonials where he gets people out in the lobby to tell about their experience, and they share those out online. And those have been really helpful in terms of getting other people in to see the show. People come in groups, and they plan to set their watch to it. So I think it's great. And it's also a testament to a one-person show, where people tend to think some kind of way about a one-person show, that it's not going to be as engaging, or it's not going to be worth your time. Like, that's not the case here at all. So if you get a chance, One Man Nutcracker, I think, as an artist, he's been to Edinburgh. I don't remember if this show is in Edinburgh.
All right. Got it. This is a long ad.
Last time I checked, I was the producer of this podcast.
I just didn't know we had money in this one Nutcracker.
I know you think I would have money in the show, but
yeah, it went on a little bit.
Well, I've covered the show on the network many times, and so if you go back, you'll see many episodes about the growth of this. I just think what's really great about things like this. I'm not particularly talking about this, but like we were talking about how there's such a limited time to see many shows that end up on stage.
Right.
But something that returns every year and consistently gets better and better is something that you can look forward to and will attract new audiences. And so I just think that that's worth elevating. Yeah. Okay, and that's the business of theater. Working title. I'm Darnelle Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss.
And Happy New Year!
Yeah, Happy New Year, everyone. And
we'll see you in 2026.
Let's hope 2026 is phenomenal, please.
I'm looking forward to it. Leaving all 2025.
Best to everybody.